The last time I interviewed you was in Mayhem 2012, and honestly, man, you were one of the nicest, most genuine people I interviewed that entire day, and I've always remembered that. So I want to start the interview off by telling you thank you for being just such an awesome dude in the last time I interviewed you. It was really, really, you were just a good guy, man. It was awesome. I have always remembered that interview. So I just wanted to thank you for just being so good, being so cool.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I've there's one theme in my life that's like through all the personal changes I've gone through, I've always been very appreciative to be able to play music,
Yeah.
especially situation like Mayhem or something where you're actually getting, you're getting paid to do something that you like as a kid would have like I would have paid money to do something like that, and I got paid to do it. So it's pretty cool.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And man, I'm digging the record, man. I'm so glad that there's new Austrian Death Machine music. This has always been one of my five favorite side projects in all of metal because it's so fun. And you can't listen to any of the records without smiling and laughing at least once because it's just so much fun. But it is release day. The record is out. Quad Brutal is here. What does release day look like for you with a record like this?
Well, now I get to find out if there's songs on the record that should have been singles that I chose wrongly. Because like then I get the feedback from fans like, "Oh man, I love this." I think one of the things about putting together a 10-song album is I'm so close to it, right? So that, like I've heard the song so many different ways, and that first impression is really like ultimately how a band should choose like what their singles are, right? So I know with this record as an example, I'm like, man, I totally could have gone a different way, and um it's not a big deal. I mean, it's a good problem to have enough good songs to have a variety of outputs, but yeah, I'm curious what the fans are going to grab onto.
Yeah, for sure. The videos, dude. The videos are freaking killer, man.
Thanks.
Dude, so I watched them at work today, actually at my desk in the middle of the day in an office, and just cranked that shit up and didn't care what anybody in the office had to say about it. And man, the Destroy the Machines video, how much fun was that video to shoot? Because that just looked like so much fun.
That was the most fun because we had the extras and everything. Like it was one of those things where we had the concept going, and then it got down to like I don't know, less than a week before the video shoot, and my wife is featured in that video, and I looked at her and I said, "Hey, did anybody ever like figure out who the extras are going to be?" And we, and with like 3 or 4 days notice, some sort of like very short notice, we just put like a little story up on Facebook, and we had those people all show up like really late, and
Nice.
I'm just super that thankful they were there. It made it a lot of fun.
It was so much fun to watch, man. But the Judgment Day video is just like there's like flying sharks and there's fire and you've got the text roll at the beginning. It's cinematic and it's just so off the wall action movie to the extreme. Where and you've got the drummer with the snare. Reminds me of the some of the Rob Zombie videos back in the day with the snare drum and all that. How'd you was that one of those videos with the treatment you just sat down and just like, what can we throw into this video that is just the most brutal action movie,
Yeah.
video ever?
Well, I mean, because of the Judgment Day being the theme, I wanted to kind of go a little bit stereotypical. And if I had one problem with the video, it's a funny problem to have, is that I actually kind of was hoping it would be like a little bit cheesier, like a little bit less well done in terms of like
Like a B
oh,
movie kind of?
yeah, like really, but the thing is the director, he knew that we are going for like the kind of cheesy like really over the top thing, and so he was putting in the sharks and like the random things flying around in the background and all that kind of stuff. So he was trying to kind of find that balance, but he's like, man, it's hard for a talented director to like purposefully do something bad, you know what I mean? So
That
that was a
makes
little,
sense.
the editing argument was like, how do we make this video worse? And he was like, I don't know, it's not my forte, So,
Oh my God. I absolutely loved it. And then the no pain, no gain video, just, with the weightlifting while you guys are screaming and singing and playing, and the bench pressing of the guitar, and then That just, man, it looks from visually like this is some of the most fun you've had recording music and doing your art in a really long time.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. I think part of it, what is interesting about most bands' history is like some of these bands been around forever and ever, and they were friends from childhood, and then other bands kind of come together later in their lives, and they sort of like put together who they feel like are the most talented musicians, which is a very strategic way to put together a band. But then sometimes they're not friends, but they're not as close of friends as maybe like just if you picked up your buddies that you went to high school with or whatever, right? So with
Right.
Austrian Death Machine, it's really like the prerequisite to performing with me is friendship that pre-exists the music, right? And so like that, it's just really fun. Because if I had to, and I have done this for most of the records, if I had to put together the entire album by myself, I could. So it's not like oh man, I absolutely must go find another guitar player.
Right.
No, it's I only want to have another guitar player if we're gonna have a blast together. And so that's really, really what it came down to.
Who are the guys in the band this time around? Because for one, holy shit, like they're so good.
Yeah, so the oldest friend of mine is Mark McDonald. He plays lead guitar, and he on the original record Quad Brutal, he did I want to say four, maybe five of the guitar.
Okay.
I think four of the guitar solos on that record is sort of like a guest. But our history stems back all the way to that, and then also I think for about 3-ish months, maybe more for As Dany, he filled in on guitar one time when our guitar player had to go home in the middle of
Okay.
the tour, like a last minute thing. And so yeah, Mark is just a very um long-term friend of mine, and I've always just enjoyed doing Austrian Death Machine related stuff with him. And so I said, well, why don't we actually make a band this time around? Like, why don't you like officially sort of like be the guy? And then Corey Walker, the other guitar player, he was co-writing a couple songs with me behind the scenes. And I said, well, dude, having such a blast doing this. Like, do you want to be part of the band and go do live shows and all that? And then lastly, the drummer Brandon Short, which is a funny name for a guy who's 6'4". Uh, he he played in a band with Corey, and so I had met them together through Of Soul for their previous band. And anyway, long story short, it just was like it was really cool to have guys that were my friends, but also extremely talented.
You kind of see the friendship kind of shows through because it looks some of especially the no pain no gain video, the scenes where you guys are doing the grocery shopping and then grilling and then eating the food and throwing at each that just it really looks like a group of friends just hanging out and horsing around. And then turns out there's cameras running and it's a music video now. You
Yeah,
can tell like there's friendship there, you know.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think that's like a good refreshing approach for metal because the genre doesn't have a lot of comedy or friendship or
Yep.
which are like in regular life actually a pretty consistent theme for most metalheads. I mean, most
Mhm.
metalheads, they hang out with their friends, they tell jokes, like they're lighthearted, they're not just always talking about, crazy metal topics all the time. And so I
Right.
feel like it's one of those things where it's a breath of fresh air.
Is it Mark or Corey that has the army helmet and the cigar while he's playing guitar?
That's Mark, and for the most part, I can't like promise his, but I'm pretty sure you'll never see him again without that exact getup. So I mean,
It's
in his regular life, I mean, he goes to work without that stuff on, but
right, right. Yeah.
but in terms of musically,
It's Arnold Schwarzenegger movie 101. You got to have the army helmet and the cigar while you're doing literally anything. It seems
yep.
like that's so Austrian Death Machine, and it's just, dude, it's just perfect, man. Um,
Well,
15 years.
the only catch about that cigar is that so we try to keep it authentic when we can, but there's definitely venues and even
Yeah.
places shooting the video where you're not allowed to have smoke indoors. So that's like the most difficult workaround right there.
It's true. But that's metal. So
Yeah.
um man, 15 years. It's dude, it just seems like yesterday that Total Brutal came out, and my friends in my dorm room in college were showing me Total Brutal. It doesn't feel like it's been 15 years, but looking back at the early days of the band, like what was the original idea? How did it come up? Like what was the original idea for the band? Where did it come from? And kind of how have you seen it evolve? over the, over the span.
Yeah, so I originally it was just sort of one of those like a lot of people talk about, you hang out with your friends, oh, that'd be cool if I did this, and you just throw out like a wacky idea. And so
Right.
I threw out that, I can't remember which movie I was watching at the time. Might have been like Kindergarten Cop or like one of the like the more silly Arnold ones. And I was like, man, there's
Yes.
so many classic things that he says. And every like hardcore band in particular, more so than because sometimes metal bands will go to like the more artistic route with the like the metaphoric route with their lyrics, but hardcore bands in particular are like they're pretty on the nose with like all their choruses, right? And so um I was like, man, like this is like every hardcore band's dream is to just have this many great one-liners for all their
Yeah.
choruses. And then so I said the idea, and then I got home from that tour, and I was like, well, I, I play guitar, I can program drums, I can, I have my own studio. I'm like one of the few people in the world that could come up with a stupid idea like that and actually pull it off. So I did it.
Right. Nice. Yeah, it's and that you brought up a like the lighthearted comedy movies are some of my favorite Arnold movies because like it was such a disconnect from what he's always done in the 80s when you look at like Twins and Junior and Kindergarten Cop, and it's like not what you would expect, but those are some of my favorite ones.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Kindergarten Cop to me is like it's actually a pretty like heartfelt movie, but there's just so many funny lines. And I think that maybe I'm not sure. I might have my history wrong, but I think that was his first time like surprising people with a role like that.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, what uh, what has been the journey like for you from the beginning of Austrian Death Machine? How have you seen the band and the music evolve? Because you've always been kind of the sole, especially in the beginning, the only songwriter to now when Triple Brutal with the guests and Quad Brutal with the collaborations. How have you really seen it evolve from your eyes?
Yeah. Well, I think when you try to keep something fun, the early stages of keeping something fun for a guy like me is like I don't need the checks and balances of five band members and a record label and a manager and all that stuff. So the fun for me, the original record was just like, hey, I'm gonna do this thing by myself. And whatever I say goes. If it's terrible, it's my fault. If it's good, it's my fault. Like whatever
Right.
it is. It's just like and that was fun to me. And then the second album, I did that a little bit more, well, a lot more. I mean, it was a double disc, and so some of those were covers and stuff like that. And I said, okay, this is fun, but now the idea of putting together a third record, it's like okay, now I feel like I've spent most of my thrash metal riffs that I grew up playing and listening to and all that kind of stuff. Now I'm gonna probably like try to co-write with some people, because I always had guests anyway. So it's like, well, the difference was when I reached out to a guest to do a guitar solo, I said, hey, why don't you do a guest guitar solo, but like why don't we write the song together as well so that it's a little bit of a combination. And then by the time Quad Brutal came around, it was like that was a lot of fun. Why don't I just like put together a band?
Were the Christmas EPs kind of a no-brainer? Because I feel like Jingle All the Way is like one of the most popular Arnold movies, if probably ever. So was a Christmas movie kind of a Christmas album kind of a no-brainer? And was it harder to do than you thought it would be?
That one kind of came together because I had a couple Jingle All the Way ideas I wanted to do, and I was like, well, um, for most people, like it's a little bit of like everybody recognizes Terminator 2 clips. Predator has Get to the Chopper. Like there's all these like really famous clips, but sometimes unless you have like context for like some of the more bizarre clips that Arnold says, like what the heck? Like why, why would that be a single, right? But it's like, well, that plus the timing of Christmas it felt perfect, so
Right. Going back to Quad Brutal, how special is it to have Dany on the album? And from what I understand, that wasn't planned at all. Like it was like a happy mistake almost.
yeah. So the short version is we were recording No Pain No Gain was the first song on the album we made. Corey and I were just, I wrote a couple riffs, he wrote a couple riffs that just it all came together pretty seamlessly. And she just was in the studio hanging out with us, like, because it was like that camaraderie, it was just like fun in the studio kind of vibe. When it came time to check the microphone, everybody was shy that particular day. I have no idea why, but nobody wanted to check the microphone. And Dany just stepped up and just she sang like the gang vocal parts and then the second verse. and like all I needed her to do was just say check check, and she just like let it rip and went for it. And all of us, and even her, like she was, she'd had a couple drinks, to be fair,
Right.
and everybody, including her, was like, whoa, like that was kind of mind blowing. Like this song wasn't written for her to sing, but we need to write a song for her to sing. And then that's how it kind of came to be.
Yeah, when I turned on the video for that song, I was like, Jesus Christ, like, holy shit, like, good God, like, dude, her vocals are like, holy crap, like,
Yeah.
so good.
What's interesting is like in terms of the screaming stuff, I mean, she like everybody else is driven around in her car and like, been enjoying a song and like sang a line here and there, but she had never sang a song like on in a microphone. But she did grow up singing like more of I don't know, like I think I want to say I want to get this inaccurate. Her dad definitely was like made her sing when she was a kid. I think it was in the context of like making her sing like church songs or something like that. So she grew up like having to sing, like her dad would like
Right.
pressure her to sing. And
Yeah.
so she sort of had this resentment against like I guess what you call traditional clean singing, right? Because she was like,
Hmm.
oh, that's like what my dad made me do when I was a kid, and I never wanted to, and he just made me do it anyway. So the idea of like her being able to choose her own voice and just let it rip is like very liberating and cool for me to like watch her do that. And then what's ironic about it is now she's open to like other kinds of singing because she's doing it like on, it's all these years later as an adult, like just choosing her own creative path, and it's pretty cool.
How cool is it that the slip cover for the vinyl is a weight?
Yeah.
Like, that's badass. Was that your idea? How hands-on are you with that side of things?
So I work with Ed Repka, the cover artist who's done all four covers, and I usually will send him a relatively detailed description of like what I'm looking for, but he always surpasses what I have in my head, So in the case of Quad Brutal, I found like a weightlifting style trophy. It was like this guy holding the world on his shoulders, kind of
Yeah.
thing. And I said, well, it's called Quad Brutal, so can you basically do this, but like have Arnold's specifically his quad muscles be like the most prominent part of him muscularly, and then instead of holding the world on his shoulders, I want him to be holding like a ball of rusty weights and broken machines destruction. So it's really like that ode to like bodybuilding meets the action movie like destroy he saves the world,
Right.
but and carries around this ball of destruction in the aftermath.
I think it's in the No Pain, No Gain video. I think it's that video. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure it is. There's a scene where I think it's Mark is weightlifting and doing the push weights, but he's pushing you and Dany up and down on the weights. Was that a hard shot to get?
Oh, oh yeah, yeah. That was our drummer Brandon. He was yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, no, we did that, and it's actually one of those things where for guys that are like in the gym and the weight lift, like on a leg press, you can leg press like a tremendous amount of weight. And so we had that on the shot list originally. It was like, hey, like somebody can leg press Danny and Tim at the same time. And then it got to that scene, and it was like way late in the day, and everybody who cooled down, it was like one of the last shots to like cross off the list. And he was like, well, this isn't that hard, but he's like, I haven't even like warmed up or anything. We're like, dude, we don't have enough time. You just got to go for it. So he just, you know, I'm thankful he didn't hurt himself, not because he couldn't handle the weight, but just like no warm up, just
Yeah.
right, you know.
Yeah. Like I was like, geez, how strong is this guy? It's two human beings that he's
Well,
pushing.
it's a bizarre band because me, Corey, and Brandon, uh, well, I think Brandon's an inch taller. So Corey and I are both 6'3", and then Brandon's 6'4", I believe. And so like the collective weight, like I'm 250 pounds, Corey's roughly 250 pounds, and Brandon's roughly I don't know, somewhere in that vicinity. So the band with just four guys, it's like 1,000 pounds, just running
Right.
around it. And so I feel like it's funny because when I play in As I Lay Dying, everybody's more like, I guess you consider like a normal size human.
Mhm.
So like you see me on stage, you're like, oh, Tim looks pretty big up there, right? Because
Right.
250 pounds next to a guy, like Ryan, our bass player, he's probably, he's under 6 foot and he's a lot smaller. But with Austrian Death Machine, it's just like there's no context. It's just a bunch of big dudes running around, So and
Right.
we didn't plan it that way. We weren't. I wasn't a prerequisite. It wasn't like you got to be big.
Right.
It just worked out that way.
Oh, I was watching an interview that you did, and you had talked about how originally you didn't really want to be a singer, you wanted to be a guitar player. Did it
Yeah.
take time to get comfortable being the front man and being a singer, or did that come comfortable? Was it comfortable? You just didn't really want to do it, and just like, how long did it take to really catch your stride in that role?
Um, hmm. I don't think I became comfortable being a front. This is gonna sound weird, but I don't think I became comfortable being a front man until, hmm, I'd probably say closer to like 2019.
What?
Because I feel like for me, I'm in my mind, I'm playing a role of like what's a front man supposed to do, right? And that's like that's what I do. And it's not really like natural to me, but like I enjoy it though. I mean, I'm
Right.
oh, I would say I'm more so appreciative for it than anything. I think the most enjoyment I would have is like being a bass player, not a lot to worry about. If you hit a wrong note once in a while, it's yes, the musicians notice, but most people don't. And
Right.
just writing songs, being behind the scenes, that would be like my ideal situation. But around 2019, I can't say exactly that moment. It's like for the first time ever, I was like, you know what? Between songs, I can yell at the crowd. I can say, let's get a circle pit. And I still do that kind of stuff. But I could also just say, hey guys, like, hey, I just want to tell you a quick story about this next song. And I could just speak in my normal voice and be myself. And that's okay too. And that's like it wasn't until, roughly 2019 that I feel like I had the comfort level to be able to just do that.
Is it the in between that's the hardest to kind of figure out what to do? Because I work a lot in pro wrestling. I'm going to our show when we get done with this, and I feel like the hardest thing for wrestlers is what to do in between the moves. So is that kind of the same thing as being a front man? Like, what do you do in between the songs, in between the verses or the choruses while the band's doing the breakdowns? Like, is that the hardest part to get down?
Yeah. Well, so specifically between songs when it's like um when I was younger in my career, especially when we were in the early days of As the Dying opening for other bands, if the song ends and then it goes, the guitar's done ringing out and there's just total silence in the room, right? It's normal for people, especially Americans, to just like start chatting amongst themselves, like whatever, like waiting for the next song. And then so if you want to keep people's attention, especially as an opening band, you've got to like almost commandingly speak like it's everything's urgent and important, right? And then
Mhm.
around 2019, I finally got to that place with my own comfort level and where we're just like, you know what? If I just told, hey guys, I want to talk for a second, that the room will just be quiet. Like that's a crazy concept because like, yes, like I still have content to provide and have to like speak meaningful words, but I don't have to like scream for attention anymore. And that's like
Right.
really a really cool place to be.
How excited are you to finally take Austrian Death Machine over to Europe this summer? Because man, I've never been to shows over there, but I've heard European metal crowds are some of the most insane people on the face of the earth. So, like, taking this project over there, what do you think that's going to be like?
Well, there's gonna be cool for a lot of reasons. One is I'll be playing smaller clubs than I've probably played in like
Nice.
decade or so, because I would rather go into some smaller rooms and have them be sold out than try to like first ever tour and get ahead of myself or whatever. So we just went and we just said like let's just make these like really intimate, cool shows. So that's going to be just a different thing for me in general, regardless of which project I'm doing, and I look forward to that. But beyond that, I mean, yeah, like historically, as an example, As the Dying is bigger in Germany than any other country in the world, right? So it's kind of cool to be able to like take this. I mean, Austria and Germany are like right next to each other geographically, take
Mhm.
Austria to Austria and to Germany, sort of like uh tied together this combination of bizarre humor and like really brutal songs. I actually, speaking of quad brutal as a whole, I think the album is like pretty diverse and complex, and so I like that some of those European fans like can really appreciate those nuances.
I've got to ask, who is Arnold on this record? And I don't know if
So,
I said his name right. I don't want to piss him off if I said it wrong, but
well,
who
so
who
I
is
asked
it?
his name's James, and he did an incredible job. And I said, well, how do you want me to credit you on this record? And he said, please just credit me as the as governor. And I said, if that's how you want me to credit you, that's totally
Nice.
fine. But yeah, he and he's actually a professional voice actor, and he's like
Okay.
he can like hire him to do so. I don't want to give away too many of my secrets, but
Right.
I also want to give him credit and promote him.
Yeah.
I mean, you could hire him to you know to send out a birthday message in the voice of Arnold to whoever you wanted, so
He crushed it, man.
yeah.
Well, I guess it's kind of a weird question, but like, what is an Austrian Death Machine show like? Because I mean, I think I've seen some clips from like the old, like the original days from when it first started. You got Arnold on stage and stuff like that. I think like, how
Yeah.
has the show evolved from that at all? What is it like now?
Well, we're putting it together, so I can say, you know, I don't think this is like spoiling anything because I think seeing it in person is part of the excitement.
Mhm.
There is my laptop started charging. If you heard that,
You're good.
so Arnold's going to be on stage again, but I wanted to have a little bit of variety, right? So different movies. I'm trying to think of the best way to describe this without spoiling anything. Different movies are based around Arnold and another character, right? So I'll just give like an obvious one, like Predator as an example. I mean, it's pretty much there's like 10 stars in that movie, but by the end of the movie, it's just Arnold and Predator, right? So
Mhm.
to have that guest experience, like singing a song from Predator, and to have Predator out there, it's a really cool way
Yeah.
to like do what I've done in the past to up the level a little bit. I sort of toyed with that idea in the past and to actually bring that to a higher level. But then because we live in an age where like video content is something that's possible to do in a live setting, to actually have video content synced as well. So
Yeah.
our drummer's got a really tough I mean, the songs are tough to play in general, but then he's got to play them perfectly to a click track because the video content's going to be synced perfectly, you know.
Oh,
So he's got a lot of pressure.
oh, oh my God. That doesn't, I don't envy him at all. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
But
Jeez.
he's up for the challenge. He's an incredible drummer. And
Nice.
I was writing Quadrutal, actually, I would program the original drums and send it to him, and he'd say, "Oh, like I just I think the song's great, I think the energy's great, and the beats I chose were most fitting for the rest most of the time." He said, "But can we just make them a little more difficult, or can we make this song 5 BPM or 10 BPM faster?" Because he just loves he loves that personal challenge.
Right. Um, what does the rest of the year look like? And I guess before that, how does it feel personally to have this record out? It's the first record in 10 years for Austrian Death Machine. How does it feel to finally have this record out under your belt and the masses finally are able to hear this stuff?
I mean, it feels good. I like I mentioned earlier, I'm curious. There's like I'm looking at the track listing over here on the back of the CD. Like there's a song really late in the record called Meat Grinder that like a couple people have hit me up and be like, "Oh man, that's such a great song. How come you didn't make a single out of it?" And it's cool to get that kind of feedback of like, okay, well, um, all the other ideas that have been floating around in my head are hitting people for the first time, and they're getting that first impression. And it's exciting.
What does the rest of the year look like? I know you're going out on the road with to Europe overseas internationally with Death Machine here in just a couple months. But when you get back, what does the rest of the year look like for you?
Because there's a As I Dying record coming out later this year, I got obligations surrounding that, which I'm also excited about. I don't want to use the word obligation in any kind of negative way,
I know what
but
you mean, though. Yeah.
yeah. So I have those
Yeah.
those obligations, and then I really want to do some U.S. Austrian Death Machine stuff, and that
Yes.
actually is a scheduling thing because I'm trying to find bands to package with that their schedule's open and so is mine, and as soon as we get all that to coordinate, we'll have something to announce.
Oh, yes. You just that made me so excited to hear. Man, Tim, thanks for taking time to do this tonight. Well, today for you. And congratulations on a record. Also, thank you for making another Austrian Death Machine album. I've been waiting for 10 years for this album. So fucking good, man. You crushed it. All of you guys killed it. Thank you for still doing what you do and for putting it all out there, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for taking time to have me, and have a good rest of your evening. I know it's a little bit later over there.
It's all good, man. Enjoy the rest of the year. Stay safe overseas. We'll see you later this year.
All right, sounds good. Hopefully I'll run into you in person at a US show.